Here I am with my two sisters. I'm the fat boy in the middle. This is when it all began for me. Lindbergh had flown across the Atlantic. I was about 8 years old. I knew about it, and I fell in love with airplanes. Why, I don't know, because I had a handicap or two. I was tongue-tied, I was cross-eyed, and being cross-eyed and tongue-tied doesn't make you a great pilot. I had a school teacher who cared enough that she had me walk home with her, first grade, and read to her all the way home. I thought she thought I was smart, but what she was doing was using an exercise program to eliminate the tongue-tiedness and also corrected my eyesight to 20/20. I'll never forget that teacher. She died of cancer at the age of 29. My school teacher was one of many that enabled me to pass the pilot's exam in 1942 at Nimrod School of Aviation, where I learned to fly the Stearman. When I received my pilot's training, I was assigned to a depot where I learned to fly many other airplanes. My favorite airplane, the Mustang, was the one that I flew. And shortly after that, I was sent to England. After checking out in the Mustang, I was given a day off in London, and being a young second lieutenant, I wanted to see some of the British girls, and so I went to a USO show. And I saw a couple of good-looking young teenagers with an older lady, and I walked over with the idea of introducing myself and asking them to dance with me. But as I approached them, there were some big guys kind of moving along with me, and I didn't like that. And about this time, the older lady, she said, "Lieutenant, may I introduce to you my two daughters, Princess Elizabeth, Princess Margaret." Suddenly I realized that I had just met the Queen Mother along with the two princes. After several months in England, shortly after D-Day, I was sent to Cherbourg, France, to restore an old German air base after the invasion. I was standing there one day and I saw a command car drive up, and it stopped. An officer got out. And much to my surprise, it was General George Patton. And I ran up to him with my camera and I said, "General, can I have your picture?" And he said, "Certainly, Lieutenant," and he posed for it. And I have a copy of that picture today. Shortly after that, here came another car. It was a convertible, and it had Prime Minister of England, Churchill, and Secretary of Army, Stenson, United States. Now, I had no idea what was going on, but shortly after that, the news was made that General Patton was taking over the Third Army, and my organization was assigned to him to fly close support. And needless to say, when he took over the Third Army, we started fighting the war, and we moved, I think, about 21 times in 21 months. I had two exciting events along the way as we moved from Cherbourg to Luxembourg. One was I was able to get into Paris before all the troops did, and had some interesting experiences when I began to meet some of the French girls. Then I wound up in Liège, Belgium. I was asked if I could go down to the Battle of the Bulge and get a P-38 off of the golf course. Elliott Roosevelt, son of the president, had run out of fuel as a reconnaissance pilot, and he landed there. And we had some maintenance people there, and they were getting nervous because it appeared that some sort of a British action was about to take place. And of course it was. It was the Battle of the Bulge. And once again, we drove a Jeep down to Luxembourg during the night and didn't even know that we were going through the Battle of the Bulge. I got to Luxembourg, went in to see if I could get a room at a hotel, and just as the sergeant gave me a room, Major came roaring in and said, "Hold all the rooms, General Patton is on his way here." Well, fortunately, I knew General Patton. I got me a room, and then the next day, I had lunch with General Patton and his staff. I admired that man. When I went out to get the airplane off the golf course, the snow was about 10 inches on the ground, I think it was. I took off, I was over the German lines. They shot me, one engine at least. And just about that time, the other engine quit. But I got the engine started again, and even though the other one was shot up by the Germans, I kept going. And I went back to Liège, Belgium with the airplane, As I approached my landing in Liège, Belgium, I had no radios, I had no additional fuel. I was stripped down to the minimum to keep the airplane going. And so I went into land, but as I began to roll down the runway, suddenly the airplane began to go off to the left. What happened, I didn't know at the time, but the German gunner had shot the left gear out, and I had no way of knowing it. So my airplane was veering off the runway toward the command post, and the guys were jumping out and running. Fortunately, I got the other gear up, and the airplane was roaring off the end of the runway, but I didn't get to be a hero because I crashed the President's son's airplane. There's a picture of it. The war didn't last too long after that. And although I was shot down by the British, spent about 30 days in the hospital, I stayed over there in Germany and was assigned to the trials at Nuremberg. And we flew Hermann Göring from Luxembourg, where he was in prison, to Nuremberg, and I had the opportunity to go to the trials. And here's a picture of Hermann Göring. Shortly after the trials, I was sent back to the United States, where I enrolled in college because I was just a high school graduate. And after I got out of college, I was assigned to NC State to teach aeronautical engineering to the students there. I thought I was going to be assigned to fly F-86s in the Korean War, but I taught college instead. While I was there, in fact, I was asked if I would fly an Egyptian fellow to Washington, D.C. because he had to go back to Egypt, and it was Anwar Sadat. He was a very friendly fellow. When I left him at Washington, he asked me to please come to Egypt, and he'd like for me to meet his people and his country. Now, I had not flown jets at this time, and I was sent to South Georgia to learn to fly F-80s. And after the F-80s, I left North Carolina State and was sent to Strategic Air Command headquarters to fly the big 6-engine jet bomber, which we used in the Cold War. And this is a picture of me and my crew. There were just 3 of us, myself, co-pilot, and the navigator. Cold War was used to fly from the United States across the Atlantic, refuel at least twice. When you got to the Mediterranean Sea, you went to cold silence, across the Mediterranean, across the Black Sea, penetrate HHCL of Russia, and they would launch fighters against you if you didn't turn and run. We lost a few men in that particular maneuver, but it was top secret, so no one ever knew about it, and you still don't hear much about it today. Our commander was General Kurt LeMay, another man I admired greatly. He was the one who said in the Vietnam War, bomb them back to the Stone Ages. He'd have dropped a nuke on them. I was assigned to some spooky programs, which I'm still not in a position to talk about because they were more than top secret. I got tired being in the Pentagon, and I wanted to get out of there so bad I volunteered to go to the Vietnam War. And this is a picture of me in Jungle Survivor in the Philippines. And there are interesting stories involved there, but this is the airplane that I flew in Vietnam. It was not a big fighter, it was a reconnaissance airplane. There were 4 of us there, myself and a navigator and co-pilot and engineer. We flew 100 missions, 600 hours in that airplane, and that's the one where I was awarded with Distinguished Flying Cross. And while I was there in Vietnam, we started what we call a country church, and it got so big, and guys enjoyed it so much. Billy Graham visited us to find out what we were doing to have so much success. We didn't have any of the professionals involved with us, it was just a bunch of old pagans. The general, that was my boss, they asked me, what material do you all use in this church service? My navigator, who was learning his own way about Christianity, he said, "You won't believe it, but the only damn thing we use is the Bible." So we had some interesting experiences in Vietnam. In 1972, I returned to Dayton, Ohio, where I had been assigned before, and I had a big shot position there, but I was so fed up with the Vietnamese War because of the treatment they gave the military, and I decided it was time for me to do something else, and I retired. And one of the events after I retired was my alma mater, University of Alabama, and they wanted to give some recognition at the homecoming game, the first game that Alabama played. So that's me out in center field with a $1 million band being awarded the flag. Because this is Delicia, my wife, from Sydney, Australia. I'm greatly honored by the opportunity I had to serve my country for 30 years, and I would do it again. Thank you for giving me the privilege.